You're listening to the Fibromyalgia Podcast with Tami Stackelhouse, Episode 1. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stackelhouse. And in this first episode, I would like to share with you a little bit of my values and the philosophy that I have about living your best life with fibromyalgia. This podcast is going to be a little bit different than most. One of the big things is that I don't believe that fibromyalgia needs to be a life-ending illness. I believe it can be very severe for many people, but I don't think it automatically has to be that way. I believe that there are a lot of ways that you can feel better. Now, how much better you feel and how you go about that, of course, varies a lot from person to person. It can depend on what other illnesses you have. If you have compounding illnesses, obviously that's going to make it harder for you to feel as good as you did before you got sick. At the same time, it also depends a lot on how quickly you're diagnosed and how quickly you get treatment after being diagnosed. Depends a lot on how long you've been sick and how long you've gone without having good treatment. A lot of it depends on your resources. As unfair as it may seem, the more resources you have, whether we're talking money resources or living in a town that's bigger and has more opportunities versus living, in a small town in the middle of nowhere, all of those things are factors in how much better you can feel. So please understand that when I talk about feeling better, I mean literally just that. Feeling better than you do right now, here, today. I believe every single person listening to this podcast can find ways to feel better. And that's what this podcast is going to be all about, is teaching you all the different kinds of research that's being done, treatment options, things I've found to be helpful so that you can figure out your ways to feel your best. So that's my big number one value, is that there are ways for every single one of us to feel better. I believe in hope. If I could summarize my whole existence here on earth in 2 words, it would be to encourage hope. That was what I was made to do. And so I really do hope that you will listen to this podcast and be encouraged and have some hope that there are ways for you to feel better and for you to get back to living a life you love. I also believe a lot in education. I believe that as patients, the more we know, the better we can advocate for ourselves and the better treatment that we can get because we know what's going on around us. You may have a great doctor who knows a lot about fibromyalgia, but if you don't actually follow through and do the things they're asking you to do, then you won't feel better. It's like going to the dentist twice a year and expecting to have good, healthy teeth. Like, you actually have to go home and brush your teeth. And fibromyalgia is the exact same way. You can have a great doctor, but you still have to be the person that goes home and does the work. And so the better educated we are, the more we understand what we're doing, the better decisions we can make and the better we can feel. I also believe in laughter. You will hear me laugh a lot. And that is just because I feel like we've got to approach life with humor. There's a lot of things we can control and a lot of things we can't control. And if we can picture life as this magnificent science experiment, that really does help, because then there's no actual failing, right? It's just opportunities to learn. And I don't mean that in some fluffy pie in the sky kind of way. As you will hear more in my story in episode 3, and as you heard in the trailer episode, I filed for Social Security disability. My illness got bad enough that I had a hard time leaving the house. In fact, I only left the house about once a week for a while. And it was really, really difficult. So I'm not saying this from the perspective of somebody who hasn't been there. But sometimes all you can do is laugh. We just need to have humor and have a lightness in our life that makes life worth living. I also very much value beauty. I value grace. I value self-care and just being kind to one another. So you're going to hear a lot about that. And I also believe in advocating for ourselves. So you're also going to be empowered with a lot of things from me about how to stand up for yourself and get what you need to feel your best. So let's talk a little bit about some of these more specific core values and philosophies. So, next episode, in episode 2, we are going to be talking about something that is one of these core values. I believe that your body is not the enemy. I don't even think fibromyalgia is the enemy, but that's a topic for a whole nother conversation. So your body isn't the enemy. Your body was created to be able to heal itself. It just needs the tools, the building blocks, the space, the rest to be able to do that. So first and foremost, I believe that you and your body are actually on the same team. We'll talk about this more in the next episode, but you and your body are on the same team and you're fighting this fight together. I believe that fibromyalgia is like the elephant in the parable of the elephant and the blind men. And if you have read my first book, you will have heard that parable. But in case you haven't, there's a parable where blind men come across an elephant. And as they're feeling the elephant, one of them feels the broad side of the elephant and says, "Oh, an elephant is like a wall. I know what an elephant is. It's like a wall." Another blind man feels the ears of the elephant and says, "No, it's not a wall at all. An elephant is like a fan." Another blind man feels the tail of the elephant and says, "No, it's not either of those. It's a snake." And it doesn't occur to them that these are all parts of the same thing, and they have no concept of what an elephant actually is until a sighted man comes along who can see the whole picture and explains that to them. I believe this is what fibromyalgia is like. We have different doctors and researchers who are feeling different areas of the elephant and saying, "Oh, it's a central nervous system disorder," or, "Oh, it's an immune system issue," or, "Oh, it's all starting with the gut." And with that, I don't believe we yet have a full and complete picture of the fibromyalgia elephant. So that is actually one of my key philosophies, is that fibromyalgia is bigger than we know it is, and we're only seeing pieces of the puzzle. I am very, very leery of anyone who says, "I have found the answer," because honestly, I don't believe the research is there yet. We still don't know what 100% causes fibromyalgia. We still don't know 100% anything. We see bits and pieces. So that's a big, big philosophy of mine. I do believe that fibromyalgia can be extremely disabling for many people, especially when it hasn't been treated properly, which is why I'm such a proponent of getting proper treatment and getting it as early as possible, which is why this podcast is going to be all about education so that you can get the information you need to get the treatment that you need. As I mentioned before, I believe you can feel better. Everybody is a little bit different on how much better they can feel and what that actually looks like. And I believe that self-care is way more than the things that we do. Self-care is not about massages. It's not about eating right. It's not about taking hot baths. It's something even bigger and more basic than that, more simple than that. I just looking at my notes here, self-care, we are actually going to go in depth on in episode 9. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, I just want to share that I believe it's as simple as self-love. Self meaning self, care meaning to care about someone or to love. And I believe that self-care is really about treating yourself the way that you would treat someone you love. So the way you would treat a relative, or the way you would treat your best friend or a child. That is what I believe self-love is. And I think all of those things that we do just simply grow out of that. We take baths because we love ourselves. We get a massage because we love ourselves. But way more important than that is how we talk to ourselves in our heads and how the words we use, the attitude we use with ourselves. So super passionate about this topic. I will stop right there, or I will be spending this whole first episode just on self care. And I've got that planned for episode 9. So please come back for that. Um, Another thing along these lines is I believe that you'll actually, in many cases, get where you want to go faster if you slow down. I know it feels like the world is moving out there so much faster than you can move with fibromyalgia. You feel like the world is passing you by. But the trick is not to push go, 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 go when you have a good day, and then crash really hard when you have a bad day. The trick is actually to slow down on your good days so that you have more energy on those bad days. Things, that roller coaster will even out, and you'll be able to have more consistent energy. You'll be able to commit to things and be able to follow through on things. People will be able to start to count on you again, and you will actually get there faster if you slow down. One of my favorite stories is the tortoise and the hare, right? The hare runs way faster. And the hare has his own issues, to be sure, as for why he didn't finish the race first. But the tortoise just kept going, one baby step at a time, and just kept going consistently, evenly, and just didn't stop. And that is how I have lived my life. And that is how I've gotten to where I have gotten. I have never done anything super big and fancy. I have definitely not sprinted. I'm that tortoise who just keeps plodding along, baby step after baby step. And that is how you get there faster when you slow down. We'll talk about that more. Another thing I believe is that healing is a full-time job. So those of you who might be listening to this who aren't working right now, news flash, you have a job. And that job is to get better, to feel better, to focus on giving your body the tools that it needs to heal if possible. Now, again, you may have other things going on besides fibromyalgia. So, that's a tricky topic. But at the same time, that is your job, is to focus on giving yourself the rest and the healing space that you need. I believe that your world doesn't actually revolve around your illness. The world around you is not revolving around your fibromyalgia. It actually revolves around your healing. Now, those decisions may look very, very similar. Maybe you are choosing not to go out with your friends. Maybe you are choosing to go to bed early. Maybe you stay home from the hike or whatever it might be. But if you can shift your mindset from, I am making this choice because I want something better. I am staying home so that my body can recover and that I can feel better in the long term. That is a very different thing than saying I can't because of my fibromyalgia, right? That mindset shift is not an easy one to make. So we are actually going to talk about that a lot. But that difference basically is shifting your mindset from a victim mindset of, I can't, my fibromyalgia won't let me, to one of empowerment. I choose not to do this because I want to allow my body the space to heal so I can feel better. I believe that talking to somebody who understands is a healing activity in itself. It's one of the reasons that I believe coaching is so fantastic, especially working with a coach who has been where you are and understands what it's like. With fibromyalgia, there's so many times we talk to people who just don't get it, and talking to somebody who does get it is so, so powerful. I also believe that in general, most of us really do know what we should be doing. The challenge is actually doing it. whether it's changing our diets or changing how we manage our energy or resting when we feel like we should rest. Most of us know in our heads and in our hearts the things that we could do to feel better. We just have trouble following through and actually doing it, whether it's because of guilt or feeling like we've got all these obligations or not knowing how to do it, or your inner 2-year-old stamping her foot and saying, no, I just don't want to go to bed now. Yeah. So, yes, we all know what we should do. We just have trouble doing it. And we're going to talk a lot in the coaching aspects of this podcast about how to set your life up in such a way that it makes doing those things that you want to do easier, that it makes it easier for you to build healthy habits and create a healing environment for your body. So, those are my basic philosophies that you are going to hear over and over and over again in this podcast. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to pull up my notes here so I can share with you. In the next episode, episode 2, we're going to talk about why your body isn't the enemy. And episode 3, I'm going to tell you my story. I have a friend of mine who actually has met me fairly recently and doesn't really know my story. She's actually going to be interviewing me, which is going to be super fun because she hasn't heard the story before. And so the questions that she asked are probably the things that you're going to want to know. So we will be doing that in episode 3. Episode 4, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I believe fibromyalgia is after 10 years of working with fibromyalgia patients and even longer than that, being diagnosed myself. And then in episode 5, I am going to be interviewing Dr. Ginevra Lipton. She is the author of the Fibro Manual, and she is the medical director of the Frida Center for Fibromyalgia. She's a fibromyalgia specialist. She has done research on fibromyalgia, and we're going to have that same conversation with her about what is fibromyalgia. So you'll hear it from my perspective on episode 4, and we will talk to a specialist and a researcher in episode 5 about what she believes fibromyalgia is. In episode 6, we're going to be talking about what your role is as a patient in your own health care. I think a lot of times as patients, we believe that our healthcare almost happens to us, right? Like we're at the mercy of our doctors and our insurance company and the pharmacy and things like that. But there's actually a lot that we can do as patients. So we'll be talking about that in episode 6. In episode 7, I'm actually going to hopefully, I'm working on booking this right now, have someone come in that I will be interviewing about the research that's been done out there on coaching and how it is helpful in helping people feel their best. I'm hopefully going to be bringing in somebody who's been doing some of that research. And then in episode 8, I am going to talk about what fibromyalgia coaching is, what a fibromyalgia coach does, and giving you a little bit of an idea about that, because I think a lot of patients, coaching isn't even on your radar. And so I want to make sure that you are equipped with the knowledge so that you know what this is as a treatment option and how it can help you feel better. As I mentioned earlier, in episode 9, we're going to be talking about the fine art of self-care and how you can help yourself feel your best. And then in episode 10, and we're going to be doing this for every 10 episodes, I'm going to be doing a special Ask the Coach episode where I will be answering questions sent in by you, the listeners. And so if you have questions that you would like to have answered, definitely start sending them in now. I know this is episode 1, but episode 10 will be here before we know it. So just go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com and you will find a place for you to submit your questions, and I will answer them as part of that 10th episode. All right. So Now you have an idea a little bit about who I am, what I believe, and what the core philosophies are going to be for this podcast. I really hope that you will continue to join me here. I am so excited about the topics and the speakers I have lined up. I did a little brainstorming the other day and I came up with like over a year's worth of ideas for episodes. So there is a lot of information that I want to share with you. In the meantime, and know this for future episodes, I will always have complete show notes available. I know what fibrobrain is like. I know what fibrofog is like. And there may be something that I mention on an episode and you don't have a chance to scribble it down fast enough, or you're in your car and then you forget. No worries. Just go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com and there will be full show notes with all of those resources and links and everything all there for you anytime. There will also be places where you can grab free copies of my books if you don't have those yet. And I would love to share with you any resources I have to help you feel your best. All right. I will see you all back here for our next episode where we will be talking about why your body isn't the enemy. See you next time.